Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Sweeney, and I'm going to show you some of the new things that are in SOLIDWORKS PDM 2026. There's several in here that I'm sure you're going to like. A couple nice Web2 enhancements that I want to show you. Let's go ahead and log in. Unfortunately, I'll log in too quick here, but if it takes a while to log in, it will actually show you a progress bar to see how long it takes to log in. Let's navigate to a file here. Now we have the ability to see the information, and that is collapsible. So it's certainly nice to give us more space. And the other nice thing is that we can now see named BOM materials. So hopefully you're taking advantage of named BOM materials. They're pretty neat. This is the calculated BOM material that we all have been able to do in Web 2 for quite some time. But now I can hit the drop list and I can see several different ways to see the BOM material. In this case, this is a named BOM material, the .BOM at the end of it. I can click it. Without this before, the only way we could see named BOM materials was to jump back to the thick client. But now nicely, we can see them in Web 2. Two nice little workflow enhancements that I want to show you. One is that we have the ability now to archive workflows that we don't use anymore. Right mouse click on the workflow, choose archive, and it makes a little folder that contains all of your archive workflows. So a nice thing about this also is that files will not be able to enter that workflow anymore. So as another thing you could do with it is maybe you were testing and you wanted to be able to quickly allow a workflow to be used and tell it not to be used. You could throw it in the archive folder if you want to, and then when you want it back, right mouse click on archive. Another smaller thing that you won't notice unless you build a lot of workflows is now if I go to the properties of workflow and I add a new condition, by default, file path isn't there. It used to come in as a default as a category and you had to change it. Since most of the time you do file path, this is kind of just a nice little tiny thing that certainly I'm going to enjoy, I know. Let's imagine that a particular user whose main job is to be able to do quotes, or they want to be able to do different parts of projects, but I don't want to expose them to the entire part of the project. And so my example, let's say underneath the projects folder, I have a U-joint, and underneath the U-joint folder, I have a quotes folder. Now, there are files here, but I don't want this person to be able to see those files. I only want the user to be able to see the files inside of my quotes folder. So there's a new user right, or group right, that I can control. It's under folder permissions. And notice here at the root, this user doesn't have any rights. Under the projects, still no rights. Under the U-joint, still no rights. But then if I go to quotes, now I have the new right is that may see folders to navigate to this subfolder with read file contents. So I have can read file contents and see the different files here. So they can see the files in this quotes folder, but as you saw, they have no rights anywhere sooner than that. So let's switch to another machine here. So log in as that quote maker. And note this person doesn't see anything except for that projects folder. Go into the projects folder. The user only sees the U-joint folder. And recall that underneath that U-joint folder here, there should be files, but this user can't see any of those. But then I come to the quotes folder, and now this user can check in, check out, and do different things. So it's a much easier way to be able to navigate to files than what we had before in 2025, where we had to be kind of clever about how we set that up and what kind of rights they would have. So I want to show you the transfer feature that I think you're really going to like. So here I'm on this machine, and here's a text file. It could be any kind of file, but for right now, we're going to just play with text files because it's faster. And let's open this up. And let's add another line to this. And of course, we can save this as many times as we want. In this case, I'm going to just save it. And I'm going to close the file, but I'm not going to check it in. So let's go to another machine. Let's imagine that maybe we're heading over to do a design review in the conference room or somewhere different in the office. Remember, I didn't check that file in. And of course, here it is. And if I double click on it in the conference room in front of my boss and everybody, it's going to look blank, right? Because the file's never been checked in. This is something that we've all known and seen for a long time. But there is a new command that I can right mouse click on the file and choose transfer ownership. And before I do, notice that right now the file's checked out on this machine here, which is my laptop back in my office. And let's go ahead and transfer the ownership over. Now it's on a completely different machine. And look, this is the second line. So that file is now checked out, still by me. I was logged in as the same user both times. And it is now here. And I can open it up, do any types of edits that I want, make some changes to it, save it, go back to my office if I want, and off I go. So let me show you how this all happens behind the scenes. Let's go back to my office computer. Another thing I want to show off is that there's 2 new columns available to us now in 2026. We can see what the name of the folder that this file, actually this is the hexadecimal document ID, which is the same as this. And we also have the archive server. So if you're an administrator, sometimes this can be very handy. So let's go to this folder here, which is in the 8 folder 46, which is right here. I've already been here before. And there's now a backup file here. And this is the backup of that file. Every time I hit save, within a couple minutes, PDM goes through and finds what files have changed, and it copies those files up to the backup. So this is handy for lots of things. Let's imagine that maybe my computer died, and I at least have that information stored on the archive server. Another thing to note, it doesn't do it immediately. So let's imagine I had a big, large assembly and I hit save and I'm saving a whole bunch of parts. Well, you might at first thought, you thought, well, that's going to be terrible because it's going to take those files and not only copy them to my local cache, but now I have to wait around for those files to also get copied to the archive server. That's not the case. That happens as a secondary process. So I can continue working on doing other things. And eventually the little process that's running behind the scenes is going to see those files are new and update them. So if you notice, I hesitated a little bit before I went to the conference room because I wanted to make sure that I had time to do it. It seems from my playing to never take more than 5 minutes. So that's pretty nice. So how's that work all behind the scenes as far as rights go? So recall I was logged in as the administrator. Let's go to the admin user here. It's a folder permission, and I can transfer to the current transfer membership of files checked out by the current user. That's what I just showed you. And there also is the ability to do it, which I didn't show you, but I could be logged in as different users and transfer the. So imagine that maybe Timmy had a bunch of files checked out and his computer got lost, stolen. Well, somebody else can get those files, or maybe he wins the lottery and it leaves a lot of files checked out, which you should never do, but hopefully everybody checks the files in every night. But this gives me ability to transfer the files that Timmy had checked out onto my machine, and any of the work that he'd been doing in his local cache, because it's been stored in that backup file I was showing you, is going to come down and be available to me without any loss of work. In 2025, if you wanted to run one of your search favorites, you would click the search favorite, it would start, and it would run it, do the search, and then it would come back, which is okay. But if the search favorite was doing a big search that took a while, I might have to wait several seconds before I can actually get in and start doing anything else with the search that I want to. There's a new option at the top of our window here that I can run search on favorite load. So I can turn that off. And now when I start my favorite search, it just opens it up and doesn't do the search. So it's much quicker. There's also the ability to do implicit searching. So let's say I want to do pin hinge. I don't have to do any wildcard characters at all and do the search. It finds under the description pin and hinge, or hinge and pin. So it really doesn't matter the order. If I wanted to do this before, I would have to put asterisks on either side of it. This now works in drop lists or regular edit boxes or combo boxes. Is available nearly every place that you can type values in. It will give us this type of search by default. The convert task has some new features, and that's all found here under the conversion settings. Under the conversion options, there's several more choices here, and I made a little graph just to show you what they all look like. The now can do the SATs. We support up to version 33. The parasolves we do up to version 35.5. The STL, we have the much more control over the deviation tolerance control. So you should be able to, if you're doing it for printing, you should get a much better quality output print. We have some more controls over what that export looks like as far as what the final surfaces and the solids are going to be. eDrawings, I think you're going to like this one. We can now include with the convert task any file properties. And if it's an assembly, we can also include the file properties of all the components in there. And then brand new, we have the ability with the convert task to do eDrawings web.